Hi everyone, welcome to the Landscape Photography Show. Back by popular demand, we've got a great show for you tonight with our Improve My Photo. And what we do is we have everyone submit their photos and tag them with the Improve My Photo tag. Now, just so everyone knows, we do require that you put that tag in there. So if you posted a photo hoping to get it critiqued and forgot to put that tag, and we couldn't use it. So we will probably have these shows again in the future, so just remember that. My name is Kevin Rowe. I'm from South Jordan, Utah, and I'm a hobbyist photographer. It's my passion, and by day I work as a mortgage loan officer, and I work on the landscape photography theme page as well as the landscape photography community, and I love seeing all your photos. And let's go over to you, Tom, if you'll introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'm Tom Pearl, and I'm based in Carmel, California. I'm an enthusiast photographer as well. I like to get up in the mountains and take landscape photos, and I've enjoyed seeing all the photos everybody submitted. There are a lot of good ones that I can't even improve in any. I can't think of a useful comment to make. They're so good. So anyway, I'll pass along that to Jim.
Hi everybody, I'm Jim Worthman, amateur enthusiast photographer based in Phoenix, Arizona, the land of the Sonoran Desert and big dust storms. We get some monsters, and I love landscape photography, and I participate in the landscape photography theme and the community here on Google+. So Margaret.
Hi everyone, I'm Margaret Tompkins from the Kansas City, Missouri area, and I'm also an amateur photographer, and I'm retired, so I get more opportunities to get out there and maybe take some nice photographs of the landscape around me. Really enjoy that, and I work as on both the landscape photography theme and the landscape photography community. So we're just thrilled to be talking about some of the wonderful images that you shared, and I kind of agree with Tom that some of those they're too good. I don't have anything that I could improve upon them. We had some excellent ones shared this week.
Great.
And we have a special, okay, yeah, I was going to say special guest curator, Pamela, if you'll introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Pamela Reynoso, and I love photography, obviously. I get out whenever I can. I have...
Oops.
Did we lose Pamela?
I think so.
We might have lost Pamela, so hopefully she'll come back in here in a minute. Maybe her internet went out or something, so hopefully she'll be back. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to me, and what we're going to do is show our show starters, and these are all the photos that are submitted to the event. We each choose one that we really enjoyed and choose it as a show starter. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll show you the one that I chose. And this is Camille Dolney, and he's a favorite of all of ours, I think. He's got some fantastic work, and this just really reminded me of a lot of the hikes I've been doing lately, and just a beautiful, that's my favorite, is when you get a nice storm cloud. Something's going on there. Okay, so hopefully we're having people drop out all over the place.
Goodness.
Okay, so that was mine, and Margaret, this is one that you chose.
This is one from Sid Bennett, and I just love this one. It just really, as I was telling Kevin earlier, called out to me. It was one of those days when I really needed to escape to the beach, and it's like here was the beach. So just an incredibly beautiful photograph. I love the whimsy and the sort of huge interest that it has. It just pulls you right along with that surfer to want to get out there in the waves. And I think what I like most about it is it shows the wind whipping those waves, and that is just so hard to capture in a photograph. I just love that little wind blown wisp of a wave at the top there. Just absolutely gorgeous. So it's my pick for this week.
Yeah, great choice, Margaret. And Tom, you made it back in time for yours.
I did. Good timing. I picked this shot. It's of Mesquite Flats sand dunes in Death Valley National Park. This is a popular place to shoot, but this shot is one of the best ones I've seen. I love the tonal values. I also like the layers. In the foreground, you have the bushes and then some mountains, and you actually have the sand dunes. And you have more mountains behind that, and then to finish it all off, you have those wonderful clouds. So I like the layered effect here. You really get a good feeling of depth, and it's great in black and white. But this is my show starter.
Kevin, are you with us?
Well, I think we've temporarily lost Kevin there.
Two people. I'm not seeing Pamela. Oh, there's Pamela.
Yes, Pamela back.
Pamela's back.
Surely there's that song, Who Let the Gremlins Out?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, while Kevin's trying to come back in, we might tell you a little bit about upcoming events. Next week, it's really our pleasure to have the great Gary Crabb on as a guest. He is one of the foremost photographers on Google+, a professional author and landscape photographer out of California. So I know that you've seen his work on Google+, and we are just so pleased to have Gary Crabb with us. He will be talking about light and his passion for finding your personal landscape vision. So we really look forward to having Gary on this next week. And remember, this week was out of sequence. We should have had our show last week, but it got postponed until this week. So next week we'll be back on track with our show featuring the great Gary Crabb. And we will have a contest just ended in the landscape photography community. That's the one on cityscapes and skylines. And we had, I think, over 400 awesome photographs submitted for that event, and the judges are working hard now to pick a winner for that. So that will be announced here shortly. And then next Monday, we'll have a new contest that starts.
We did, and I'll say the entries in that contest were just amazing. If you haven't gone to the landscape photography community and checked out the new cityscape and skyline category, by all means do that. And take a look at the contest while you're there. Some amazing, amazing work. So I have my show starter. Oh, there's Kevin. Kevin, you're back.
We are back, and it looks like we're still live.
We are.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. We're having all kinds of issues this evening, huh?
Kevin, do you have my show starter queued up, or do you want me to share?
I do have it. Did we finish Tom's?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
Let me get back in there. Okay, there you are.
Super. This is a photograph from Ratul Maiti, and for me, I just love the monochromatic feeling of it. It's not really a mono, but You know, it's very monochromatic looking. I loved the atmospheric effects here, and the composition worked. And I don't know if you can see it on the Hangout, but in the background, just to the left of the island, is what looks like a fisherman on a boat. Just, I mean, the whole photo I thought was really well executed. So that was my pick.
Awesome.
That's very good.
Yeah, lots of great photos to choose from. So we're back in here. So that was a little crazy. I have about, you know, a gazillion windows open, and apparently my computer decided it was too much and just shut off. So luckily, you know, with the Google Chrome, when you turn it back on after a crash, it asks you if you want to restore everything, and opened all my windows back up for me. So that's good. So just real quick, I want to talk about what we're going to do here. We're going to go through, and each of us are going to talk about a photo, and some of us will be just chatting about them. A few of us will go into some editing on the techniques on the photos. But the one thing that we all agree on, and the one thing that everyone should understand, is critique doesn't mean that we are saying negative things about the photo. And each of us will often have varying opinions on the photo as well. So just because I say, you know, this is the way I would do to the photo, Jim may not agree with that, and that's okay. And you might not agree with what we're saying. So don't feel bad about anything that we say. If you don't agree with it, then don't worry about it. It's, you know, that photography is an artistic thing, and you are the artist, so you're the one that makes the final decision. But that said, hopefully we can, you know, give you some ideas and just give you some tips and pointers that might help you out going forward, because we can always learn from each other. And Margaret, you're going to start, and I believe you're going to share your screen and show us a photo.
We'll see if we can do this here.
And I'm gonna let you pronounce the name on that one.
And I'm not sure about this. Kavita Kubova shared this photograph, and it's just a lovely photograph to begin with. I love this wonderful color in the trees that are here, and a gorgeous reflection, and just look at these clouds reflected in the water. There's so many lovely elements about this photograph, so there's not too much I could do to improve things here. But one thing I might do is I find that this area up here is just not as interesting as the area down here with these clouds and the trees and the reflections in the water. So I might do a crop on this. And on this, I really just want to get rid of some of that sky there. I might kind of keep the rest of this. I probably would like to get use a rule of thirds and kind of get this horizon there with the tree line along this bottom line. That would be something that just seems to be a little bit more pleasing to me. So I might crop this. And here I have now, I've just removed that kind of uninteresting part and left all these beautiful elements that are here. Now if I did a bit more to this, I might do like a levels adjustment. I'm just going to add a layer here. And here I might go through, and I'm just going to do just a quick little levels adjustment. And all this is doing is spreading out this histogram across the entire range that it has. And I do this for the red, green, and blue. And I do like doing this separately for each of the color ranges there. And this just tends to make the photograph look a bit more brighter, a little bit more makes the colors pop a little bit more. So I've just done just that basic levels adjustment. And the colors here are really nice. In Photoshop, you have hue saturation, which will change the saturation. I like to use vibrance, though. Vibrance, it also has saturation here, so you can use this. I wouldn't do much to this at all, but the vibrance, you might bump that up just a little bit for the vibrance. Vibrance seems to be a much more subtle approach than the saturation slider is. And then if I really wanted to do just something a little extra, I might just put just a little bit of contrast in here, not much at all. So here you see what we started, or what we've done with, let's see if I can do a before and after here. See. Now, other than the crop, we did crop this here, so we just have something that looks a little bit brighter than what we started with. The real important change, I think, that was made here was that crop, where we just focused on really the wonderful aspects of the photo we wanted to keep. So these would be just some ideas, some suggestions on this one. And I'll, yeah, any comments there from anyone else?
Yeah, sure. I like what you did. I like the, you know, simple adjustments is all it is. Really simple stuff. I do have one comment on the saturation and vibrance. So the way I like to think of saturation versus vibrance, saturation is going to saturate the strong colors and bring those out. Vibrance is going to bring out the less dominant colors. So, you know, your really light blues or your the lighter yellows that are in there, it's going to bring those out. So, you know, you kind of, the easiest way I found to play around with those is just crank them both, you know, to all the way to the top and to the bottom, and you can see which colors it affects. And after you do that for a while, then you know, you kind of learn what vibrance affects and what saturation affects. Anyone else on that one?
I like the adjustments that Margaret made. I think it really does make an improvement in the photo, and it's a lovely photo. Nice composition, beautiful colors.
It really is. This was a great photo to start with. So.
Yeah.
All right, I will unshare here.
Okay, and I'm just going to pull up, and I'm finding that some of my windows didn't get pulled up in correct order, so I'm just going to get that one up real quick. And our next one is Jim, and let me share my screen. I've got Jim's photo pulled up here. Oops. Okay, Jim.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, this is a photo from Adrian Haras, and I liked the photo. I thought it was a great point of view, beautiful scene. I liked the light on the hills. It really made for an interesting composition. For me, the big issue I had was the clouds were overexposed, and I'm not going to try to correct it because, you know, when it's overexposed to that extent, there's not much you can do in post. So this is something that would need to be done at capture time, and a common thing to do is to bracket. So you take a range of shots, and some of them will turn out too dark, and some of them too bright, and you ought to get one that's well exposed, that can become your master, and you work from there. But one of the things that happens, especially with nice clouds, and the clouds here are really gorgeous, but when it's overexposed, you see these broad white areas that just have no more detail in them. So if this were properly exposed, you'd probably see some nice fluffy edges to those clouds. The other thing that I think here looks as though this may have been an HDR, and HDR or not, though, you can see some artifacts also around the clouds. So there's nice, pale blue sky, and then the white clouds. But right bordering the clouds, you can see kind of a dark blue, I'll say halo. That often results from HDR processing, and it's something good to look for. Anytime you have borders of light areas and dark areas when you're doing your post-processing, you want to be sure you don't introduce artifacts. And I'd be interested to know if this was HDR, and I'm guessing that might have been responsible for those dark halos around the clouds. Does anyone else have comments on this one?
Yeah, I think he had the right idea. Good photo, but just like you said, just overexposed on those clouds and lost the detail in those. But awesome.
One thing I really like about this photo, especially in the lower right-hand side, there's some lovely light and shadow balances going on there. Just really lots of nice texture, and that's just done very well. I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Now I'm going to try and move on to well, actually I'll just move on to myself here, so I'll share my screen, and I'm going to show one in Lightroom. And so let me reshare that screen. Okay, so this is Gail Trunick, and I really like this photo. It's really nice. You've got the subtle trail that's going through here up to this. I don't know what it is, but it's cool looking. It looks old and cool. And then the other thing, of course, is these trees that are bowed out across the trail. Makes a really interesting photo, if you ask me. So the one thing that this is, it is HDR, and I know it's HDR because the file name said HDR on it. So usually it's kind of a guess, but that's how I knew it was HDR. And one thing that I think really happens with your HDR images is when you bring them back into either Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever software you have, Aperture, you need to do some adjustments because it looks a little bit flat. And HDR makes things look a little bit flat because it's bringing out all the shadows, and so you don't have a lot of contrast between shadow and highlight. And so you kind of have to add that stuff back in. So if I was working on this photo, I'd come back in and I'd probably add some contrast. And then I'd probably just work my way down to the whites and the blacks down here. And a trick that I use in Lightroom is if you hold down the Alt key while you're adjusting this, it will show you where you're losing detail. So where those are coming up, that's blowing out the detail. So if we look, yeah, there's all kinds of detail that's lost there. So if we hold that down, we see we're keeping the detail. And that usually gives you a pretty good, accurate amount. I mean, obviously, then you can go in and fine-tune it to the way you want it to look. And the same with the blacks. And we're going to reduce the blacks. And to me, you don't need the detail that's lost right here. And you can see just by sliding that from 0 down, you can see that it instantly gives you more depth in the image. Now at that point you could adjust the exposure a little bit. I think it's fine where it is. And really I think that's it. You just need to do a little bit to add that depth back into the photo so that it's not the HDR flat look. And that's about all I have. Anyone else have anything on this one?
Yeah, just a comment about the HDR look. Well, first of all,
I really like the shot as well. I was going to pick up the comment, and I like the. Jim, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think we've got a real delay there, but yeah, I'll go ahead. So I totally agree, Kevin, with your changes to the image, and I think you nailed it when you said that it really adds depth. So to me, what you've done is it's approaching a photograph that you couldn't necessarily tell it was done with HDR. And just the one comment, while I like that style as well, there are a lot of people who just really like that kind of overdone HDR look. And so the steps that you described probably wouldn't be for them.
Right. Yeah, Tom. I think we have a little lag with you, but go ahead.
I was going to say I really like this.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll comment here. Okay. Tom's on.
Tom, if you start going, just keep talking. We'll all be quiet. Margaret, did you have something to say there?
Yes, I love the composition on this. This is just
okay.
drop-dead gorgeous photograph.
Okay, go ahead, Margaret. Tom, you're having some bandwidth issues or something. We're not quite getting all of your information there.
I had got my comment made. I really love this photograph. It's those trees that arch over that cabin. It's like, did they make them grow that way or what? It's just so wonderful.
Yep, very cool. Okay, now hopefully we can get Tom to get in here and get on the same page with us here. So Tom, and let me find the photo here. And okay, that one is closed down, so let me reopen it real quick and we'll share my screen. Can you hear us, Tom?
I hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, now you're back on. Okay, good.
Okay.
Let me get back to your... So you've chosen Pedro. Go ahead.
Okay. I really like this shot. I like the way the lines are leading into the sunset. I like the detail in the foreground. This is a very difficult shot to do because you have a very high dynamic range between the sun setting that's very bright and trying to bring out detail in the foreground. I'm not sure whether this was a multiple bracketed exposure that is combined through HDRs or whatnot, but yeah, it certainly might have been. I couldn't tell from the file name. Because it was taken, I think, a third of a second exposure, and so it's a little bit. You see movement in the waves a little bit, but it's not real soft water. I see from the lens, I think it was a 14 to 24 lens, so it didn't have an option of putting on a screw-in neutral density filter with that.
We lost you again, Tom. Let's see. While we're waiting for Tom to come back, do you have anything to say on that, Margaret?
No.
Okay. So I think the thing that I heard Tom talking about is that it's the the waves are neither soft nor sharp. And that kind of does, you're kind of looking at it, and you're not sure which way you're wanting to go. Right through here. Is that you're trying to catch a splash, or you're trying to soften the water? So that can be a little bit confusing. I don't think it's a big deal. And then it's overall, I think it's just a little dark. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I had the same reaction. Gorgeous shot, and I thought it was probably a good exposure given the dynamic range. But in post, I'd probably be inclined to try to lighten it a bit, and maybe just lighten the midtones.
Mm-hmm.
Use, as an example, use the center slider on levels, and bring up the brightness a bit. But yeah, beautiful shot, well composed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You're just trying to increase those midtones, but I think it's awesome composition. You got the lines leading right out to the cloud-covered sun, and just a great photo. So let's go ahead, and Margaret, if you want to get ready to share your screen again.
Okay.
Your second photo. And Tom, you're back again. Do you have any, before I move off for that one real quick, do you have we kind of went on without you, but you want to finish up real quick?
Well, no,
Maybe.
I think you guys hit a lot of the points that I was trying to convey. As far as a very high dynamic range shot and difficult one to do.
Yeah, great. Okay, Margaret, I'm going to go over to you and get your screen share up.
All right. This is a photograph shared by Yogesh Vaiskat. I know I've butchered that name. I do apologize. It's a wonderful photograph. I just love the light that I see here, and I'm asking myself one question: what is really the predominant feature here that I wanted to capture in this photograph? And I'm looking at this wonderful bridge here, and the light on the horizon, and I think everything else in this photograph supports that. You've got these wonderful lines here in the sky that are coming in this way, and then you've got all this wonderful rock here as an anchor to the photograph. And what I'm thinking is that maybe I'd like to see a little bit less rock so that it would feature this area of the photograph more. So this is another one that I might do some cropping on here. And I might just crop it down a bit so I'm looking at maybe keeping the rule of third lines kind of on the horizon there, so I have sort of twice as much land and sky here as I do water and rocks, and that looks about right to me. And what this gives me, I still have this wonderful rock layer here as an anchor, and now it's really emphasizing this area in the center. So this is just a lovely, lovely element, and I think what we want to feature. So before we had, it was kind of split right down the middle, and this I think just adds a little bit more interest to it in that it draws my eye immediately to this area right here. So this is one that I would just suggest to crop. I love the colors here. I love everything about this photograph. This is just exceptionally good. Now I might go on and do a few tweaks, but I don't think that this thing, it needs much tweaking at all.
Yeah, I agree. It looks great. Anyone else on that?
Oh, I like the crop, Margaret, and I think it's a real strong image. I like that you kept those wispy clouds. I thought that was a great
Oh,
feature
yeah.
here, and they just kind of, draw your eye down toward the horizon. And the uncropped version for me, and I think kind of like you were saying, it had so much dark area in the rocks at the bottom that it tended to pull me down there, and this, this crop lets me look up more higher in the image and out to the bridge and all that.
I think that is something. I know people talk about that rule of thirds, and they like to talk more about how to break the rule of thirds than to use it. But it's something that I find that is just really strong. When you've got a photograph, if you will try to get it 2/3 and 1/3, now that might be 1/3 sky and 2/3 water. It just whatever it might be, and you might try it both ways. See what you like. Here you might want to try 1/3 sky and 2/3 water. I don't think you would like it as much as you do this combination, but that's always something good to where you've got a horizon like water, and of course horizons always should be level. And I've got a thing about that. Everybody knows that. But this horizon is perfectly level. Let me point that out. It's just perfect there. So I will unshare now.
Great. And I agree with your crop completely on that. I love the sky in that one. So the sky is kind of using that as your leading lines heading down to that bridge, which is great. Okay, Jim, you're up next. Let me share my screen for you. And there you are.
Okay, yeah, and let's see. So this is Jacqueline Bear, and I thought lovely composition in this, and what I liked was the layers, kind of the nice detail in the foreground, some mid-ground, and then some distant detail as well, and some interesting clouds in the sky. For me, this is one of those that was probably HDR and has I would have taken the processing a lot less. I thought for me this was kind of over processed. The saturation really emphasizes the blue sky, but in a way that I thought was a bit too intense. And also, and I don't know if it comes through, but if you look at the horizon or around the trees on the right side, you'll see sharpening halos. So sharpening is really important. It may have resulted from HDR processing, but it looks more like sharpening to me. It's kind of emphasized the borders between light and dark areas. So the sharpening really does help bring out the detail, but when you take it too far, I think it's often distracting. So I think this has good potential, and I'd be inclined to go back to the original capture, and if it's an HDR, that's fine, but I would probably process it again to try to make it more natural looking. And again, and Kevin pointed this out at the beginning, that's my vision, and that doesn't mean that was Jacqueline's vision. So I think, but again, I do think this is an image with tremendous potential.
Well, and I'd like to point out, and I'm not sure, Jim, that it's necessarily the sharpening. I think it's the either the HDR or just the extreme, either a filter or something. But here's where it, you've got the halo that you talked about. Where it really kills me is in the trees.
Yep.
Because looking through the trees, it's just white, and there's none of your processing. And there are ways to fix that in Photoshop. We don't have time to go into them now, but yeah, just that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just that halo. Just, and I can even live with it because this is a higher processed photo. I can live with it on the edge, but through those trees it just looks weird. So that's what I would work on. And give a shout out if you want some help on working on this in Photoshop. If you do have Photoshop, I can point you in the right direction for some information on that. Okay,
Yeah,
anyone else?
Yeah, those are very great clouds and wonderful shapes and all. I find the processing a little bit distracting in the clouds because there's dark blue around some of it. It's dark blue halos around there as well. I find that like you already mentioned about the trees.
Yeah, I think that was a good catch, Tom. You're right.
Great. So let me, I'm going to switch my screen shares here, and I'm going to show another one in Lightroom here that I really liked. Okay, and this one was from Stefan Schultz-Kellengoss. I'm sure I totally messed up your name, and I apologize. So I really like this.
I do too.
I'm assuming that it's a color image. I don't know that for sure. It looks to me like it is a color image, but you know, there's no color, which is fine. That's great. What I notice though is through this, I'd like to see a little bit more detail in here, and I know it's covered by fog, and I know that's an issue, but what I would do in here is I'd just come into your basic controls again, and again I'd add a little bit of contrast, and again just coming down to this whites and blacks, and maybe increasing these whites with the same method, and I'd be a little easy on that, and the blacks with the same method, holding down the control key and moving that down. And you really don't need detail in that section of the trees because it's just a black area anyway, and you can see, in fact, let me go into more in depth with that. With the blacks, notice this these trees here. There's some good detail in those trees. Now if I go over to the blacks and I decrease that too much, you'll notice a lot of the detail, and hopefully you can see that on the Hangout. A lot of the detail left in those trees out there. And when I hold down the Alt key, and actually it's not showing me that now, I might have pumped the whites up too high. So let me try it like that. Okay, well I'll move on it. In practice it worked. I'm not able to move the blacks down enough, but you would eventually lose the detail in those trees there. But if you bring it up here, you're losing the detail in these dark spots that you don't need detail. And then the last thing is this magic little clarity slider here. Yeah. And look how much that just brings out the contrast and the detail in there. You still have the great cloudy look to it, but you have some detail shown through. And let me just do a before and after of that. And that's just a couple simple steps, and maybe I want a little more of that detail back in that tree line, so I think that. And that's really all I do, is just the real simple adjustments in Lightroom. I think it's an awesome photo. Great job. Anyone else?
I love how it brings out the definition in those rocks up there. Just really, really nicely done. It's wonderful definition in the rocks. Really gives them some size, some depth, and those trees are gorgeous.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, great. Well, we're back over to you again, Margaret. If you want to get your screen share ready.
Here we go.
And you've got Larry, right?
Yes, Larry Milliken, a name I can pronounce. Larry, wonderful photograph, Larry. I just love the composition on this. You've got some gorgeous rocks down here. Just look at the texture and the detail in them. Just incredibly wonderful. And I love the light that is on the white caps here in our little stream, that white water. So just some beautiful details here. I even like his copyright thing down here with that, looks like an egret or a water bird there. Just very, very well done. So on this one, I might come in here. This, by the way, is not one I would be cropping any. Oops, that. Let me just come in here, and I would do a levels adjustment, just again a very simple one. And this is just going to spread the histogram out. Here's our red, and we'll do our green and the blue. And here is one that, again, I might do just a little bit with the vibrance. I might try some, just the saturation, bring that up just a bit, and the vibrance, I would bring that up as well. And maybe just a touch of contrast. So you'll notice just how quickly this is all going. Just very simple little touches there. I think it's bright. Now this is one it might this might be one that I would do a little vignette on, or I might just come over here and get the burn tool and just might burn the edges just a bit here. Let me make sure I'm in the right mode here. Just might burn the edges just a bit. And if you ever want to brighten up the center, not that this really needs one, but the dodge tool, you can use that. If you wanted to just highlight some of the whites that are in here, again, it probably doesn't need that here on this one because there was some lovely bright areas there. So in fact, I might even, come back without that because this is just beautiful the way it is. So those are just a few little tweaks. Let's see if I can do this before and after here. So here's our before and our after. So we've just brought out some of the tones in these wonderful rocks down here, and just a few little tweaks.
Great. Anyone else on that one?
I really like the photo, and I like Margaret's tweaks. One thing that I notice is the bright rock down in the bottom right-hand corner. I'd probably, if this were mine, be inclined to darken that rock a bit so that it didn't tend to pull my eye away from the center of the photo. That's kind of a minor thing. Overall,
We'll darken that a bit.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that tends to reduce what was for me a distracting element. But great photo.
But this one, even the light that's in this rock here kind of pulls you right up into this center area here. So I sometimes think of light here as a leading line itself. It just sort of pulls you right in. So wonderful photograph, Larry. This is incredibly great composition.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And then I'm gonna actually answer a question, and it looks like several of our viewers actually answered the question for them, but I just want to go over this real quick. So the question is it true that it is always safer to underexpose, and that with digital raw files, detail can be recovered from underexposing shots more easily? And I'll ask what the others say, but I say definitely no. You're going to have noise. If you're underexposed, you're inviting more noise into your photo. We were talking about the photo that was overexposed and the shots were blown out. I tend to try to watch the histogram and make sure you're not blowing anything out, but you want to move your histogram to the right side, because the brighter your image is, the cleaner it's going to be, and then you can go down. You can reduce the exposure in post-processing, but your file will be cleaner, and as long as you haven't blown the highlights out, then you're safe. Anyone else on that?
Yeah, totally agree. And the technique's called expose to the right, which is kind of a common name for doing what Kevin described. I would add that when you look at the histogram on your camera, the safest thing to do is look at the RGB histogram. Because in a lot of cases, if you look only at the luminosity histogram, the one that just shows brightness, that can tell you the wrong story. You may have one color, like reds, that are really saturated and blown out, in fact, and losing detail in the image, but the luminosity histogram won't tell you that. So in addition to checking the histogram, I strongly encourage bracketing and exposing to the right.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a photography lesson one time, and it was just this wonderful old guy, and some questions like this were raised, and he said, why wouldn't you try to expose properly in the field? You know, you've got less work to do than on your computer. And he always phrased it, he said, thou shalt trust thy histogram. And it takes a while, I think, to get comfortable with, if you're out in strong sunlight, it's difficult to really determine in that little itsy-bitsy thumbnail of a photograph whether you've blown things out or overexposed or underexposed. But if you tend to rely on your histogram routinely, there's truth in that histogram. There really is. So the more that you can just, don't worry about it, just get the histogram looking right, then when you get it back home on your computer, you'll find what a gorgeous exposure you have.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and I think we got Pamela back, so hopefully she'll stay for a minute and I can get to one of hers. Tom, we're going to try yours again, and hopefully your internet's working. Go ahead.
I thought this was a great shot by Alan Vassier. It's part of Yellowstone Park, West Thumb. It's an interesting area. I really like the path that he has in the picture. I almost wish I could see a little more of the path that might allow my eyes to follow it around as it leads down. So maybe we would have framed it a little bit differently. The other thing with this picture, we've talked about tonight as having good solid blacks in a picture and adjusting both the highs and the lows. And I think I would do a little bit of adjustment to this picture because I think it could use some good blacks. Quite often we want to see detail in the dark areas, but at the same time you need a good black to really anchor the picture. And I think that's my main comment about this shot. I hope you guys heard me okay for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard most of it. I think you cut out a little bit about saying having a little bit of black in there, and I agree with that. Just a little more contrast, I think.
Exactly.
Is what it needs. Yeah.
Exactly.
But
so
really nice.
Increase the contrast slider, play with your curves, or just if you use Lightroom, play with the black slider.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. Tom, I'm glad you chose this one because I almost chose it as well. I thought it was a great photo, and totally agree with your comments. And I'll point out that this is what well-exposed clouds look like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're nice. Okay, now,
yes.
Pamela, are you back with us? Oh, hold on, you're muted here.
You're muted, Pamela.
Okay. She must not be back with us then. Okay, so let's move. Let's see, we just did that one. Let me find where we're at here.
I'm here now.
Oh, you are here. Okay.
Yeah, for as long as Chrome will let me be.
Okay. Well, let's try and get you in here then.
All right.
Let me. I'm just gonna come out of my share for a minute while I get this, and then I'll go right back onto it. So this is. One of your choices here, Pamela. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Trying to get my head back in the game here after fighting with my computer. You know, the first thing I noticed about it, I mean, it's a nice theme. I think it has a lot of potential. I noted that it was taken around 10 o'clock in the morning. If that's true, then the light struck me as being a bit harsh and a really contrasty scene. So I kind of wondered what it might look like in a black and white. When the light is really harsh and contrasty, it really often benefits from going black and white. So I was kind of wondering also about I see the little dam over to the left, and it really pulls the eye because it's a strong sort of man-made structure. So I would consider eliminating it from the frame, maybe swinging the camera a little more the other direction and seeing what you get, maybe, you know, walking over to the left a little bit and aiming back more towards the right. And I do notice, I think, in the processing on the mountaintops, on the edges, there looks to be a bit of halo. And I couldn't pull it up because it was a kind of a lower res or smaller file, but it looks like it could use some work on that. Those were my initial impressions. And maybe the use of a polarizing filter would have been really helpful to cut down on the glare in the atmosphere and the water.
Mm-hmm. I think a polarizer would definitely help that out one a little bit. Anyone else, any quick comments on that one? Yeah, I think it's a great, I mean, awesome lake. I want to see more photos of that lake. And maybe it's one of those things that you're not there at a time where you have a better light, which might lend itself to black and white, like Pamela said. So.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me, I'm sorry, was the focus. The focus seemed to be really close to the bottom of the frame, and so that struck me as well.
Yeah, and I thought this might be one where, as it is, the horizon, you know, the far edge of the lake, if you want to think of that, is sort of right down the middle. And I'd be interested to see how it looked if you cropped away some of the blue sky. So, you know, bring more attention to the mountains and to the lake and the foreground, and there's not a lot going on in the sky, so I don't think, you know, it'd be a problem to lose most of the sky.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, thank you, Pamela. At least we got one of yours.
Yay!
Back for one. So we're going to go to our last one. I'm going to go over to Jim, and go ahead and share your screen, Jim. And
okay. Should be there.
Yep.
Good. So let's see. This is Vari Tanaka, and I thought it was an interesting, you know, kind of atmospheric shot. I love the mist, but for me, the foliage in the foreground and on the left side, out of focus, was kind of a distraction. So I'd start with a crop, and by the way, I'm the outlier using Apple Aperture, but most of the tools port very well if you're using Lightroom. So I'm going to do, for this example, probably a fairly severe crop, just to see what it would look like. So I thought here, I'm going to bring that up, and so I've gotten rid of all of the out of focus foliage, and actually I'm going to bring it down a little bit and take away a bit more of the sky. So here we see, you know, some kind of nice foreground, and let me just go ahead and accept that, and we see kind of up in the upper left part, we see this mountain. I like the atmospheric quality, but the other thing I'm going to try is bump the contrast a little bit just to bring out a little bit more detail. And you notice in the histogram up here that there's essentially nothing down in the bottom third of the image. All of the image tends to be on the brighter side, and I think that's an important part of the atmospheric. So I don't want to destroy it. I wouldn't want to run the darkest tones here all the way to black, but I'm going to use the levels tool to darken it a bit. And that is doing that is very much equivalent to in Lightroom using the black slider. I'm also going to bump the definition just a little bit without trying to get it. I don't want it to be too crunchy. So that's just a real quick pass. There are other things you could do. I might bring the exposure down just a bit. Well, no, didn't like that. So it retains the atmospherics. It adds a little bit of information in the sky. It removes what for me were the distracting foliage in the foreground, and I'm going to show you a before and after. So that's kind of my take on this photo. Let me go back to the original one and open to other comments on this image.
Yeah, it's an interesting way you went there, Jim. I wouldn't have saw that one, but I liked it. I think maybe the photographer was enjoying that tree that has a little bit of color in it, but like you said, the out of focus foreground there just kind of takes away from the image. And then, and I don't know, maybe it's not possible, maybe a little higher, if you could have got the camera a little bit higher and got above those.
Yep.
And that also would have, if you wanted this interesting chimney on the left, if you wanted that to keep in, then it wouldn't be covered by out of focus bushes or leaves or whatever as well. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. There might have been something interesting going on with the building there and the chimney, as you say. So taking just shooting it from a different angle might have opened that up a bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else on that one? Okay, great. Well, that's our last one for tonight. We appreciate everyone submitting the photos, and hopefully you can take some of the information and learn from it. Hopefully we helped a few people. Like we said, if you don't agree with what we said, you don't have to. That's okay. It's your photo, but hopefully you could take a little bit into account. So now we're just going to head over to Jim again and go through our photographers that we recommend.
Yep. And let me start the screen share. And while this is coming up, by the way, I'd also mention that we always love your feedback. So tell us what you think about Improve My Photo, and if you'd like to see more. So is it up?
Yep.
Okay, good. So my pick, recommended photographer is Christian Fletcher. And he's a pro photographer from Western Australia. He's had a lot of accolades, including Landscape Photographer of the Year award. He conducts workshops. I love this example of his work, and I like the long exposure effect on the water and the colors. It just this works for me really well. Here's another example in monochrome. Very tranquil shot with the square cropping, the main subject almost dead center, long exposure to blur the clouds, great tonality. And I encourage you to look through his stream and follow Christian Fletcher. Now let's see, on to Margaret.
This is Gail Trunick, and we saw some of one of her photographs earlier that was edited. That was that one with the cabin in the woods with the branches arching over the cabin. That was such a lovely photograph. She does wonderful work and a wide variety of work. Here's a nice architectural shot, HDR, one of the casinos there in Las Vegas, and she's from Las Vegas. And I think you have another one there, Jim. This is one of Canyonlands. I just love how she captured the beautiful colors there in the sky and in the red rock. She does macro, she does black and white, just a wide range of photography, and she's excellent. And she only has like 120 followers, so she's brand new to Google+. So get in on the ground floor, go circle her, check out her work. I know that you're going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks, Margaret. Okay, Tom, this is your pick. Tom, are you there? Well, if Tom's not, I'll speak to it. Oh, Tom?
Oh, here I am. I had picked Monica Dolna, who's a photographer from Denmark, and this is one of her lovely shots. I really like the colors, you know, of the autumn trees, the bright red and the yellows against the green background. It almost looks like a painting. So I like this shot, and then you could flip to the next one, Jim. This one of the seascape really caught my eye too. I love the soft colors in the sky. I love the piece of driftwood where you get this wonderful reflection on the wet sand, and also it must have been a fairly long exposure because the water is nice and soft. So this is one of my favorite shots I've seen. So highly recommend you take a look at her work. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay. Kevin.
Yeah, so this is Christian Rogers, and he's out of Boise, Idaho. And I grew up in Idaho, lived in Idaho for 26 years or so. And the Sawtooths, I lived in Sun Valley, Idaho, and this is the Sawtooths, which are right there. And one of my favorite places, so pretty nostalgic about these pictures, but he's got some great stuff around him, and I saw that he said he, you know, first time he'd driven there to check it out. So he's going to be back, and we're going to see a lot more. But Christian's a great photographer. He's also one of the moderators at Landscape Photography Community, and so he's a great person. You should already have circled if you share with Landscape Photography Community. But here's another one. This is in the Sawtooth. There's amazing lakes, and this is one of the great ones. This is Lake Stanley, and he did an awesome job with a long exposure late in the evening, catching the blue hour. So check Christian out. You'll like it.
Very good.
All right, great. Well, we appreciate everyone, and Pamela, we're sorry that you had issues tonight. We'll hopefully be doing this again, and you'll get to talk more. And Tom, we're sorry about your issues as well, but you know, we can't always make our computers or our internet work the way we want them to. So we had a great time. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, and like Jim said, we'd love to hear your feedback, and let us know if you enjoy this critiquing Improve My Photo show. And with that, we'll be back again just a week from now. So short turnaround next week, and we will have Gary Crabb. And so that should be a great show. If you don't know Gary Crabb, I should recommend you check our recommended photographers out, because he's in there, and you can find out what he's all about. But he will be here next week, and we will see you then. And good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.